You may never believe, but I can still remember.
The majority of the game that the player's playing is very much an individual running around performing quests and going through the storyline. But the story actually evolves, and through the process of leading up, the player's performing quests that will free different prisoners from areas of the game. All the while, the player's progressing and actually getting a bigger and bigger army together, enabling them to actually come and fight with him in the battles.
There are things about this game which are not like all the other hack-and-slash action games. It's one of the things, I guess, as a studio we like to do is not make games which are bang down the middle of the road of a genre. We're always off to one side slightly. I think the way we've used battle scenes and the idea of battle and got that into the game, it just sets us apart.
Norse mythology is easily as rich and as varied as Greek mythology, and it's got exactly the same kind of sort of godly politicking and the immortals messing in the lives of mortal men.
When we're looking for a theme for a game, there's a number of different things that we look for. We want something which people are going to recognise and think is cool. The Vikings in general give us that. There's a huge amount of Viking mythology that most people know a little bit about, even if they don't know a lot about it. But we also look for strong imagery that goes with that, like their boats and their weapons and armour and even the landscapes.
What we've really tried to achieve is this idea of spectacle, this idea of the Hollywood battle where, you know, you are William Wallace as Braveheart, you are Maximus from Gladiator, and you're there making the difference. Quite a few games out there have hinted at this idea of you being amongst this huge battle, but no game yet has really actually just put you straight in the middle of thousands of men fighting.
Where many have failed, only one can succeed.
Scarron is actually a really interesting character. Norse mythology itself is full of really sort of tragic figures, and there's a kind of bleakness which I guess could be associated with the climate.
We're not providing you with a character that can leap hundreds of feet in the air, fall hundreds of feet to his death. We're providing a character that behaves believably and yet extreme. So the moves that he does, you should be able to feel them. The sword, when it hits, it really hits. It leaves you feeling that the combat you've experienced is real combat. The hurts hurt, and the people you've killed are very definitely dead.
We wanted a character that was not just a killing machine, and we wanted something that the player could believe in. We were really aiming to try and encapsulate the qualities of the classic Viking hero in a single man.
We made him a somewhat sort of isolated character. What this actually meant was that there was an inherent tragedy and power to the character at the same time.
He's plagued by visions. The vast majority of the other Viking warriors at the start of the game are kind of mistrustful of him.
I went through, first of all, a lot of documentaries and books and looked at how real Vikings looked and tried to fit it into this universe that we were creating. I went through a lot of different versions, and for like Scarron, for instance, we went through hundreds of versions, trying to get as a good main character as possible.
His character is one that goes on a really wide progression from outcast and troubled, plagued character to one that ends up being the saviour of Midgard.
You start off in a sort of relatively nice, bright, sunny environment, and as you progress through the other islands, it eventually turns into a icy rock, snowy type place that looks pretty desolate.
Tone and the progression of that increasingly dark story, the worlds themselves follow that path and follow that kind of descent into darkness.
Each of the levels takes place under two atmospheric conditions. When you lift the shroud of badness by liberating an area, the environment completely changes. None of the locations are reflections of real places, but they will obviously take their inspiration from real landscape, real architecture. The environment is based loosely on a real Northern European environment, turned up to 11 really.
Because of the fact that it's free roaming and we needed the player to be able to go anywhere, that did cause challenges. The challenges mostly came down to code problems which had been overcome by the, frankly, quite incredible programming team.
Each of the 3 islands has its own kind of unique theme and setting, and those are sort of a key to setting mood in what's a fairly dramatic game in terms of its pacing and the strong narrative that we've brought in.
The third level, the mountains are very steep and dominant. The architecture kind of mirrors that. You do have to consider the world in a more kind of real, tangible way. You know, the player could approach this landmark from any direction. Not so much the business of framing a shot. This has to look good from every direction.
Some of the places that are in there, your standard players may never actually go. The more committed players who want to go in there and actually look for treasure and things like that.
Keeping the player immersed in your game is a problem that basically all games have. You have to be very careful not to break the player's sort of suspension of disbelief.
You know, we get into the standards of the pre-rendered stuff that you were seeing in movies like Jurassic Park and things like that now.
The more real the game looks, the more immersion you get. And that's one of the things with Viking that we've done particularly well. The game looks fantastic.
There was light. Now there is shadow.
One of the things that was really important for us to do was to make sure that Scarin had a real sort of sense of impact in his fighting. And the way we do that is have a variety of combinations that you can pick. You might want to stab one particular guy with a thrust, which would be a particular combination of buttons, and then turn around and do an overarm swing on another guy. And so all the time you're picking particular targets. I'm going to get you with this attack, I'm going to get you with that attack.
We've gradually allowed smaller skirmishes and ambushes to come into the quest system as well.
It's a pretty clever plot that we've got going. You go along and you do a number of quests to free a number of your men. You need these men in order to complete your large-scale battles, which are effectively the boss fights.
I think fundamentally they're just absolutely unique. You've got the ability to call in these sort of dragon strikes that are extremely satisfying to see happen. The idea of this cutscene of the dragons flying in and your men gathering for this big battle, and then as soon as the player gets control, he's actually in the front line leading the charge of thousands of men. It's a really epic moment gameplay that, again, you don't see in any other game.
I've personally never seen a game, I've played a game that's had the same sense of size and impact that I have when playing Viking.
Well, obviously with a one-on-one fight, there's primarily 2 things to be scripting. There's an enemy and the player. As soon as you start putting thousands and thousands of men into the equation, there's just no way we'll be able to do individual scripting. So we move on to a sort of squad-based system where you can determine how many men actually operate within a squad. And it could be any number between 2 and 200. And that allows the scripters to basically script groups of men, and at that point the code takes over and actually determines how those men should behave in a group of people.
That whole experience of being stuck into the battle is just something else from the rest of the game. It's different from every other boss fight because that's you and thousands of your men against thousands of theirs, and it's special.